Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Wow. I can't believe that we're here already again. We're doing another mob takeover, and this time with a super special guest, Dr. Kirk Honda. How are you, Dr. Kirk?
Good. Feeling good. Stormy outside, in Seattle. It gets a little stormy in the fall, so I feel that coziness feeling, of wanting to stay inside and read a good book.
Do you know, I just moved this week, so I apologize for the kind of sad background and this crazy beach hair, but I just moved across the United States, so it rains a lot here too. It's kind of sad looking, but it's good.
Yeah. It's pros and cons,
Pros and cons. All right. So guys, for any of you guys who don't know who Dr. Kirk Honda is, he's a therapist and also a professor. He has a YouTube channel called Psychology in Seattle. And Dr. Kirk Honda, and I like saying your whole name. I like just spreading it out there. Dr. Kirk Honda. For those of us who don't know who you are, can you at least tell us a little bit about what you do on YouTube?
Yeah. So I've been doing a podcast for 12 years, mainly just an audio podcast. And then during the pandemic, and I've been talking about all things psychological and movies and all sorts of things. And then during the pandemic, me and my wife sat down to watch Love is Blind because there's all this talk about it and 90 Day Fiance. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do that reaction video kind of thing, because I've seen that on YouTube. And I thought I'd get, a few hundred people watching because that's usually what I get. And then it just exploded. And so now half of my life is watching 90 Day Fiance and reacting to it.
You never thought by becoming a therapist and a professor that's where life would take you, is sitting here just reacting to TLC.
Exactly.
All right. So, Dr. Kirk, I wanted to talk with you today because I think this is a really fresh, kind of fun perspective on TLC and the castmates who are obviously a part of the shows that we love. It's so easy for all of us to jump on here on YouTube when we are YouTubers, I guess, and that's our main job, and we're not therapists and professors. It's so easy for us to jump on and just kind of trash everything that's going wrong in their lives, right? But for me, I don't particularly like to do that. I kind of like to more so understand the people, where they're coming from, how they got there, and what it really looks like for them after. So I thought you would be the best guy to bring on today and talk about kind of TLC's hiring algorithm and how these people go back to a normal life after TLC.
Yeah, it's got to be rough, right?
Right.
Afterwards and during. And you have to wonder, do they understand what they're getting into? And what is it really like? And I'm guessing you might have talked to some of the cast members too. There's an emotional toll. You and I are on the internet. There's an emotional toll at our level. I can't imagine being at Big Ed's level, for example, although he seems to take it in stride. So yeah.
Right.
And it just raised some questions also, is like, how do they choose the people to be on the show? What's the decision-making process there?
Well, and that's what I was curious, and I wanted to ask you, since you obviously watch the same shows that we do you feel like there's a certain algorithm that goes behind TLC and how they hire? Because it seems like every time we, respectfully, every time we get a new cast, it's a little bit of a circus because that's what gives us the ratings, and they always have a secret that comes out mid-season. So does TLC just vet out these cast members and kind of find out who has maybe the most, I don't want to say issues, but there's a more proper word, but the most dramatic turns that are going to happen? I mean,
yeah, I've given it some thought because I didn't watch reality TV really until recently. And as I watch it, I'm thinking, of all the people they could have chose to be on the show, they chose these people. And what is it about these people? And it does raise some questions. And they must have it down to a science because reality TV has been around a long time. So they must know through research and also through past shows, like what seems to work. And because to me, if you look at the cast of the most recent 90 Day Fiance, I wouldn't have thought that Big Ed would be the most noticeable, most important, compelling star on the show. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Why do you think that is, though?
Yeah, I think what it is a number of things. One, it's producing an emotion in the viewer. It has to produce some emotion, whatever emotion that happens to be. If there's no emotional reactivity, then I think that reduces the likelihood of it being compelling and having it being something that you want to watch and, repeatedly watch. So emotions run the gamut, right? You could have like, I identify with this person, and I have empathy for them, and I care for them, and I hope that they have, success in life or something. So that's one emotion that I think they're trying to evoke in people. Another is anger. I hate that person. I think that person is a jerk face, and I don't like that person, and I judge that person. Or another feeling is disgust. And I think this is actually something that they do a lot of, is they show us a lot of things that are designed to make us feel disgust. They're just like, ew, oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
And if you have a mixture of those feelings, then all the more compelling.
Right. Well, and then, I mean, I can totally see that because, it's one of those things where we've all heard the common saying of like, whether you love them or you hate them, you're still talking about them. And I think that's what we get with the TLC people, because I don't really find a lot of comments where we really empathize or love a lot of the castmates. I feel like a lot of people just want to judge and ridicule them. A good couple, though, that has changed that stigma, I think, would be Kenneth and Armando. A lot of people on TLC the other way are so excited to see how the storyline plays out, especially because they are a gay couple. And, it's more exciting. It's something that we haven't gotten to see. But for Big Ed, do you think that physical characteristics could have played into why they chose him, as if it's almost kind of like, he's a little bit different and it makes for good TV?
Absolutely. I mean, it had to have been at least part of the thinking process, if not an explicit conversation, that they thought this will produce something in people. Either people will feel bad for him, or they'll feel disgust or grossed out, or anger at him for one reason or another. I'm sure it's part of their discussion process. Yeah. And it raises some questions of just like, is that exploitation, or is it raising awareness? Because I didn't know, and I still don't know that much, but apparently it's some condition that he has around, I don't know, it's some kind of genetic condition that he has that produces, I think, a shortened neck, if I'm not mistaken, like spine-wise. And I'm not a physician, so don't.
Right.
But I didn't know about that condition or that, genetic reality until I looked into it a little bit. So maybe it raises awareness. I don't know. But you bring up this question because when I watch the show and I would react to it, I have my take. And then I would see a lot of people in the comments just attacking the cast members. And I thought, well, maybe this cast member is just particularly hated, but it just seemed to be like frequently people seem to get on this bandwagon of ridicule and hate or anger or something, or it might even be because they're kind of bullying in a certain sense on
right.
them. And I thought, I started wondering about that, and it makes a lot of sense because a lot of us are walking around with a lot of insecurities. We're walking around with a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, and unresolved. And we're looking for a way to balance the scales somehow. In the same way that the bully in the 5th grade, when he goes home, he's being abused usually. And so he's trying to balance the scales by taking it out on a innocent, helpless, less powerful person at school. We're all walking around a lot of pain and a lot of powerlessness, and we want to get it out of us. And so one of the ways that we can do that is to what seems to be, harmless attacking of celebrities, essentially. It gets things off our chest. It distracts us from our own internal issues. I don't want to accuse everyone,
right,
alienate everyone, but it does provide an opportunity for us to reflect on our own traumas and our own needs.
Right. So that's essentially what putting yourself on camera and putting yourself in front of the world, it's kind of like, it's one of those, it feels a little bit like a come up to you, and almost like and this is just my own personal perspective, so I'm curious what you think about this. If Big Ed would have been somebody who was bullied, or let's say Darcy and Stacy, they would have been bullied in high school, then it makes sense why they are trying so hard to have the attention in their adult life, right? And they go above and beyond to kind of still live as if they're in their 20s, as opposed to being 40, 50-year-old women.
Yeah, that's why I always love it when they give us a little bit of detail about their childhoods, because it explains so much, or at least it provides a conceptualization. And with Big Ed, I don't remember hearing anything much about his prior life before being on the show. But with Darcy and Stacey, we've learned in this season that they grew up as what they would call awkward kids, nerds who they weren't fashionable. No one wanted to talk to them. They apparently moved around from school to school, so they were always the new kid, and they were insular. You know, they were the weird, awkward chia pet head twins, as they called it. You know,
right?
And it, when you see their lives now, it kind of makes some sense that when we have those traumas, and just think about feeling an outsider, no one accepts you, and you feel dorky, and you don't look right, and no guys want to talk to you, and no one popular wants to talk to you, and then you grow up, and then you start to figure out, okay, I have power over my life now, and if I really work it right, I can be fashionable, and people want to be my friend, and I can be the cool one, and I can look down on other people, and it kind of makes some sense.
And exactly. And now having that platform and getting the attention, whether it's good or bad, or people even think, like for Big Ed in this instance, like he has no problem dressing up in a big chicken costume and sending you a personal message. And that's kind of his thing. And it's almost like he's making the joke on himself before he allows you to make the joke on him. So it's, yeah, I completely understand what you're saying here. So now,
and maybe his, I don't know if I've seen a little bit of his Beyond the 90 Days show or whatever, where he reads tweets and stuff. And like, I was seeing a little bit about how he copes with that. And he seems to cope with it on the surface very well. People will say real nasty things to him on Twitter or something, and he just seems to react like, better than I would, I'll put it. And so you just wonder, like, how did he get to that place where he's so adept at protecting himself from criticism? Just raises some questions.
Right. No, and I agree with that. And I think that even though it is surface, it obviously doesn't make it hurt less on the inside. And that could totally be a mask. It's like having, like, for example, like the big guy in school make the fat joke first or something like that. It could easily be that, and then something that's internalized. But Dr. Kirk Honda, since I like saying your first, last name, and your title, do you mind if we bring on a caller or two just to ask them and see what they think about this?
Please.
Yeah. And before I do, I just want to grab this Master of BlackJack. Who Said That game really quick, because we can't do this without that. And because every time I bring on a caller, I always ask them, Master of BlackJack's Who Said That game. Here we are. Who said that? Okay, so before I bring on a caller, Dr. Kirk Honda, do you mind if I ask you, and let's see how good you know your TLC on the game Who Said That?
Okay, yes.
All right. Here we go. I'm going to go. All right. They called me cheesy butt, and I can give you 2 hints.
Okay. It's not ringing a bell.
Domestic violence charges.
Oh. What's his face?
It's a girl.
Oh.
And $10,000 face.
I've only watched some of it this year, so it is.
No, that's okay.
Do you know if I've seen this person?
I believe you have.
I mean, Larissa is the only person that comes to mind.
It was Larissa.
Okay.
All right. I appreciate that. So let's bring on someone real quick and see what they think about Big Ed. Again, everyone who comes on, especially, please just respect that Dr. Kirk Honda and we both keep it clean. So just no vulgarity or aggressiveness, not on this conversation, because that's just not what we're here for. Hi, Shan. How are you?
I'm so excited. My 2 favorite YouTubers on screen at once.
Wow. We'll keep you around, Shan. Wait.
Do I
go ahead.
Play the game?
Yes, I was going to say, before we ask you, or before you go on, can I ask you one of the cards?
Please.
All right. So on Who Said That, this one is, Good Husband. She's from Brazil.
Yeah. Well, it's Karini.
Wow. Yes.
Ding,
all
ding,
right.
ding, ding, ding.
Okay, we got it. All right, Shan, what's going on?
Okay, so first of all, Dr. Honda, I've been following you for at least a year. Thank you for all of the work that you give to YouTube. I feel it's very generous and I appreciate it. I've learned so much about narcissistic personality disorder, and I appreciate that. I can't tell you how much. Oh,
Wow.
I'm fangirling right now. Sorry.
Wow.
I'm really fangirling. So my second...
I'm getting excited here.
Really my two favorite YouTubers on the screen. But my question isn't about Ed, so I hope you don't mind. I just want to know, Dr. Honda, why you didn't continue doing Love After Lockup.
So I decided to do a number of one-off episodes. I talked about this, and as an experiment to see which ones people really wanted, and because I only have limited time, and so it wasn't one of the ones that people really took to. You know, for sure there were people that loved it, but there were a lot more people interested in some of the other shows that I did one-off of. If I could do, and maybe one day I'll be able to have a lot more free time to do all the shows, because that was actually a very interesting show.
Isn't it?
So that I watched. There's a lot there to talk about for sure.
Exactly. Okay.
Just to piggyback off of that too, Dr. Kirk Honda, again, I like saying the whole thing, Shan. I posted it on my YouTube, or I'll post every once in a while in my community tab, and I'll get excited about a show and just reach out and ask everybody before I do anything on it. Just like last night, I said, hey guys, 100 votes and we'll do Bachelorette tomorrow. And I got 150 plus votes, and I think over 120 of them said no. And I was like, okay, that's what we want. All right.
Well, thank you so much again for both of you. And I love that you're from the Pacific Northwest, because I'm in Vancouver.
Oh. Yeah. A neighbor.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
All right. Bye, Shan. All right. Dr. Kirk, moving on just real quick before we bring on our next caller, I just wanted to move on to, so we're going to also talk about Paul and Karin and Larissa, but I'm just curious about Larissa first. As far as Larissa, we know that she came to America with the full support of her family in hopes of achieving a better life, right? And sending money back to her family as well as her children to ultimately support them and have the American dream. Now, I think the American dream, that's such a broad statement. You know, the American dream could mean anything to anyone. And for Larissa, obviously physical attributes play a big role into that. I'm curious, do you think she's always felt like she wanted to be this person that she physically looks like today her whole life, and being a part of TLC and having these paychecks that just facilitated that, the ability to do that?
Sorry, we're talking about Larissa right now?
Yes, Larissa.
Yeah. What was the question? Sorry.
So I'm curious, has she always been this way deep down? Like she's always wanted to change her face, change her body, kind of be this person who, and I think this is respectful, or the best way I can say it, likes attention and likes the attention of having a different look, something that's more striking. Has she always felt like this inside, or has being in front of the TV screen kind of brought that out in her?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think central to her character in a lot of ways. I'll tell you that I've only watched, I believe, 2 seasons, and I think she's on like 4 or 5 seasons. So I'm not as caught up on the details of her life as you are. But one speculation that I've had while watching, and of course I'd have to ask her to confirm, is just this notion that from an early age, she realized, so for people who seem to pathologically garner attention, negative and positive attention, and they seem to over-focus, everyone wants attention. I mean, you and I are on YouTube right now. This is trying to get attention. So it's only a problem if it creates a problem. And so for some people, their effort of trying to get attention will hurt other people's feelings such that they don't want to give you attention, or they don't want to love you, or people hate you, you get negative attention. And she seems to exhibit some of that. It's hard to know because it's just what we're seeing on the TV show. But one of the speculations I have is that there are some people early in life that learn that the only way they can get attachment security, meaning someone that's there for them and a sense of emotional safety, you know, the sense that your parents are there for you when you need them, a sense that your parents like you and are paying attention to you and have your interest in mind. In order for her to experience that early in life, it seems as though maybe she had, because she wasn't getting enough of that, she had to try to get attention and demand it from other people such that she would get a little bit of attachment security. And what this does is it locks in your patterns in the way you see the world, such that as an adult, you end up shooting yourself in the foot by trying to get too much attention and not emphasizing more healthy ways of getting attachment security. I don't know, but I've treated people like that before.
Wow. Okay. And then, so I think my next question is, and I think this is something that we all as fans invest ourselves into, because it's almost like the segment that we all know very well. Where Are They Now? Right. Where we see stars, celebrities, or former reality stars, and we see them maybe 100 pounds more coming out of a really bad gas station. They always seem to catch the worst sides of these people. But for Larissa, life after TLC, we obviously know that she has her cam show, Cam Soda, or whatever the case is, that makes her a lot of money now. So TLC fired her because it's too much explicit content. But now that she's not on national television, is it going to be hard for her to go without that kind of notoriety as it fizzles out that she's already had it?
So Larissa has a cam show?
Yep. It's called Cam. It's on Cam Soda, and it's a more explicit where she shows off her plastic surgeries and kind of her, it's a little bit more intimate photos and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it all comes down to, for me, when I watch this show, is what are their goals in life? What are their needs? So for Larissa, I would, again, I'll just talk about the people I've treated with this condition of pathological attention seeking as a proxy for attachment security. Is deep down, they have a need for attachment security. They want to know that people love them. They want to know that people are dedicated to them, that they're safe with other people, that they matter in the world. And so they're trying to get that done, but they believe that they can't get that done because they learned early in life, there's really no point in trying to get that done, but I can get a ton of attention.
Right.
So as she heads into this other activity, post TLC, is she getting her needs met? Now, can she do this cam and get her needs met in some other way? Maybe there's a healthy relationship or a set of people. Absolutely. Or is it just another manifestation of running away from attachment security and getting her needs met and toward that illusion and fantasy of attachment security through attention seeking? I don't know. We'd have to ask her.
Okay, that's fair. And then I know this is a little bit off topic, and before I bring on another caller, may I ask you, and you can totally just decline to answer for sure, but would you consider Darcy to have the same, can I say condition?
Yeah, condition, mental, perspective.
Mental perspective. I like that.
Yeah, so Darcy, I have a lot more data on, and I've seen, I think, everything that she's been on TLC. She's the she's the person I know the most on these shows. And let me ask you a question before I answer your question. Do you feel like you care about them and you hope the best for them? Because I feel that way about Darcy.
Do I feel like I sympathize and I attach in ways to each castmate, almost as if there are things that I can relate to them on. Whereas like Big Ed, you kind of struck a chord a little bit where he could have been bullied. And a lot of us, we sympathize because we see this man. And I have an uncle that is in his 50s and he's like 4'7". And when I walk around with him with my brothers who are 6'5", and people look at him just crazy, it really upsets my family and my brothers, and it's something that he's always dealt with. And then I've had my own bullying thing. So then when I see Big Ed, I sympathize, and I think I can take a little bit of that sympathy and put it into each character until I see someone. And I don't know, again, you said you just watched a little bit, but 90 Day Fiance the other way, there's a couple on there, Brittney and Yazan. And Brittany came on the show. She's from West Palm Beach, which is the exact same place that I'm from. And her boyfriend on the show, his name is Yazan. He's from Jordan. He needs her to convert to being Muslim in order for this relationship to work. But you can completely tell her storyline is pre-produced, and she came on the show just to get some notoriety, and she had no intentions of ever being in a real relationship. So then when I see someone like that, I don't necessarily sympathize because I feel like I'm reading through a pre-produced storyline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Yeah, that's unfortunate. I actually have seen that couple a little bit because my wife does watch that show, and sometimes I'll walk by the living room and sit down and watch that. And she's often yelling at the screen when it comes to them. And
me and your wife have a lot in common.
There was one scene though where I saw her just coming apart emotionally after she was yelled at by the family and by her, and her, fiance wasn't being very supportive. And so in that moment, it seemed genuine to me. It seemed like she was at least partially invested in this working. You don't see that?
Well, see, and then my only thing, I've always been so interested, by the way, and I feel like I should have tried to go to school to be a therapist or something, because I love just dissecting where people come from, why, and really trying to understand. I love this stuff. But for Brittany, knowing that she's very open about her previous dating history and dating men that are much older than her, who have these random fetishes with the young girl thing and like the braces. She said, like a lot of older men like that I have braces because it's a fetish, and rich old men like it. And it just seems like there might be an element of insecurity here, that she can't seem to fill that void, and not necessarily that this pertains to Yazan. I think this is more of a self thing than it is really this specific relationship.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just my denial or my naivete or my hope of watching something and having it, because if it's fake, then it's like, why are we watching it? Exactly.
Right.
So I could just be deluding myself, but I would like to think that it can be all those things. It can be both the trying to get attention, just going on the show because you want your Instagram followers to skyrocket, trying to propel your career, and you also are looking for love and hoping that you can find someone to spend the rest of your life with in the way that all of us want, right? I'd like to think that those two things can exist, but of course, none of us can get inside her mind.
Yeah, and no, it actually makes sense that you kind of just delivered that perspective, because in a sense I was really kind of, I guess, looking at this through a tunnel with like blinders on, as if like she can't feel all of those things, and that's not necessarily true. So I appreciate you saying that, because it's really, yeah, she can feel all of those things. I didn't even, it's, wow, we see why you're the therapist.
Well, because to me, when I was watching her, I think I was thinking a similar thing that everyone thinks. It's like, why are you involving yourself with this guy? Like, of all the people on the planet, why this person who has this family? There's so many barriers. Like, there's so many other people you could be dating. Why this person? And that is actually a question I have about Darcy and Stacey as well. It's like, why those guys? But anyway, Georgie seems like a nice guy. But anyway, so there are those questions that you have, and you're wondering, is this fake? But then when she had that breakdown where she was really falling apart, and that felt genuine. I don't know if you remember, she's in the car and she's just really coming apart emotionally.
Right.
That looked real to me. Like, that looked like I was actually worried for her in that moment. And I don't know what was happening in that moment for her, but that didn't seem manufactured. And so in that moment, I was like, oh, maybe there is some genuineness here. And for some of us, it might just be hard for us to understand decision-making. Why would you, of all the people dating, why that person? People have probably said that about you and me, why that person? So.
No, yeah, I can completely sympathize with that. And I mean, that makes sense. I guess, again, that's why we have the therapist in the house, because you even opened my mind in this conversation to, yeah, it's like, just because I feel like this is a pre-produced storyline doesn't mean that she doesn't have real emotions while she's filming, and when there's cameras in front of her face, and that those real emotions don't actually stem from somewhere. So that makes sense. All right. Yeah. Do you mind, Dr. Kirk, if we bring on another caller?
Please.
All right. Sad Star Podcast, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Adam?
I'm good. What was that?
First of all, you look glowing as always. And hello, Dr. Kirk.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good.
It's an honor to talk to you. By the way, I love your videos and I listen to them all the time. And by the way, your videos help me a lot, by the way. So It's like I watched some of your videos and I can think back of some moments in my life, and it kind of makes things clear. So thank you so much for that.
Great. Music to my ears.
Wow.
If you're talking about me, maybe you're talking about Adam.
No, she's talking about you.
No, about you, doctor.
Oh, great. Music to my ears. That's why I do it.
So Adam, what's up?
No, well, I wanted to ask you, first of all, I love that Dr. Kirk, you're getting such an amazing response because, again, you have so many people who appreciate what you do and why you come on here. So thank you for being a content creator, because that's why we love you. And you just share a fresh, genuine, nice, clean perspective. And we don't get a whole lot of that on YouTube. It's, again, like I said earlier, it's very easy to jump on the bandwagon and talk about all of the things that are going wrong and not really try to understand where these people are coming from. So again, real quick, I do want to just say thank you for being here. Yeah, of course. And then Sad Star Podcast, I want to ask you, I have a Who Said That card, and then I wanted to see if you wanted to ask Dr. Kirk any questions.
Sure.
All right. So let's just pick a random one. Here we go.
Oh my God, I'm so scared.
I've heard Latin men are beasts in the bedroom.
What? Who's that? Is that cold?
No.
It's not. Who? Give me a hint.
Narrow. There's two hints here: narrow shoulders and no sleeve shirts. I can give you another hint. He's on Pillow Talk and he always crosses his legs.
I don't know anyone on Pillow Talk. Is it the Robert, the guy? Tim, who's that?
You don't remember Tim? Oh, Sad Star Podcast. I picked the wrong card.
I didn't watch that season. I don't know who that guy is.
That's okay. See, there you go. And he's going to have to deal with that because he was on reality TV and now he has to go back into the world and find someone who doesn't know who he is. So thank you. Thank you for humbling Tim, Sad Star Podcast. Did you have any questions or comments for Dr. Kirk?
Yes. So I just want to ask a question. Regarding Larissa and her relationship with Eric and her new job on Cam Soda, as Adam said,
I don't know who Eric is. I haven't watched.
You don't know.
I've only seen the first couple seasons, so he's still with Colt in my world. So I'm working my way through the seasons because when I watch the show, I want it to be fresh, and so.
Okay, and another question. So. There was that moment when Brittany was having this conversation with Yazan and his mom and his dad, and she broke down when Yazan's mom went hard on her, and I thought that she cried for a few reasons, and the main reason was she cried because she likes to be in control, and that's something that we've all noticed. At least I've noticed, where she says, "It's my way or the highway. It's either you listen to me, Yazan, or nothing happens." Like, at least that's what she shows when she's with Yazan or around him. So the moment she went there to meet the family and whatever conversation she had with Yazan didn't happen when they met the family, I think that's when she broke down. Because the family wasn't going to get it. Do you think I'm right or wrong? And how do you see this whole dynamic happening?
I mean, all of us are speculating and based on watching human beings through a pinhole in a fence. So, any guess is good as any other. But I'm remembering more about that moment, and control. You could definitely conceptualize it that way. And why do we want control, right? All of us like to have control. Why? Because it's safe to be in control. And for those of us that are pathologically control seeking, it's because we probably feel unsafe a lot, and we were made to feel unsafe a lot. So that would be one question I would have. But the other, I'm remembering her breakdown emotionally, and from my memory, she at that point suddenly realized, seemingly, that she was in another country, in a completely different culture, with no one in her corner. I think, but as she was going there, she felt like, Yazan was in her corner. And then as she started to go down the roads with the in-laws and other people, she suddenly realized that night that it's like, oh my God, I'm completely alone. No one's in my corner. And I've made a terrible mistake, and what am I like? It just felt like that to her, and I could kind of relate. Like, I've never been in those shoes, but I could imagine feeling that way of being in another country, being in another culture. No one is, nearby that can help you, and just feeling very scared. That was my take, but again, eye in the beholder, right?
Yeah. So, as you said just now, that Brittany, she likes to be in control, or at least from what we say, she seems to like to be in control, which control equals some sort of safety to people. Safety is security. So from what we've seen, and as you've said before, there is some sense of like some sense of like attention seeking, especially from people who are on the show. And she likes attention very much from her pictures, from the way she acts online. And from what, like at the beginning of her segment, her and Yazan, she had this song playing where she said that she's going to meet her Arabian man. She's going to get that Arabian money. So I'm starting to think that when she went there to Jordan, she thought that she's gonna have some sort of security, as we've said, safety and security with an Arabian man who has Arabian resources. Do you know what I mean? Like, Arab men have this some sort of like persona around the world that they're rich and they're famous and they have a lot of money, which equals security. Do you see what I'm going with this?
Yeah. I mean,
I think she was catfished. She catfished him. He catfished her,
Or she catfished herself,
I think she played the trick on herself when she was like thinking that she's gonna go there, thinking that she's gonna have an Arabian man, which is not, like, that persona is not true. I know, because I'm Arab, so.
Can I piggyback off of what you're saying really quick? Because Dr. Kirk did a video that I just watched where he was talking about Big Ed and Rose, and how Big Ed was immediately under the defense of going to Rose's country and having them possibly want money or resources for him. But then Dr. Kirk, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, you were explaining that it's really not uncommon. Like, we've seen where Rose came from and like what her village looks like, her community looks like, and why she would be hopeful that she would get some extra resources to kind of have what we consider now a come up, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah. It's easy to judge or misunderstand when you are in a particular kind of privilege or cultural pocket or whatever it is that we're in. I'll just speak for myself. I've never grown up in poverty in my life. And so I have to remind myself, like, there's a different world and a different set of needs that will emerge from that I'll just take for granted. The fact that, with Rose, for example, the fact that I know that I'll always have a job. Like, when I was growing up, it never occurred to me, like, I might not be able to earn money. I might not have food. I might not have a house. I might not have running water. Like, I just always knew, like, well, eventually, that'll work itself out. But for Rose, she definitely cannot say that. And so you might compromise a little bit in terms of your wishes in life to attain that, at the same time of looking for someone that you actually connect with emotionally, which seemed to be what she was doing in the beginning.
Right, which kind of goes back to also, again, Dr. Kirk, it's one of those things where, like, you'll see these conversations, whether they're on reality TV or movies, or it just seems like it's really common where the sister might be saying to the other sister, like, oh, honey, you can't have it all. Like, yes, he might be old and chubby, but he has a lot of money, and the 20-year-old over there is a bartender. Like, it's a lot. We hear that a lot, where if you want X, Y, and Z, you might have to compromise. And maybe that's what Rose was doing. Big Ed might have not been the most physically, attractive thing to Rose, but he could have, supported her life and gave her a better life as well as her child.
Yeah. And it was interesting, because at the beginning of the season, I was wondering, does Rose really like this guy? Because it's hard to know. But as time went on, the fact that every time he hurt her, she was more and more devastated by that, it seemed to me like there was something she was losing. You know, it wasn't just like an intellectual thing of like, oh, I don't like this guy. I think she was like, oh my God, I really liked this guy, and he's being so mean to me. Like, it felt like it was genuine as she started, you know, to go through the season. And so she seemed to, you know, have that. It's like, well, I like him and he seems like a great guy and I want to be with him. I want to have a family. I want to have kids with him. And what a wonderful opportunity to go to the States and give a good life to my kids and myself. You know, it just seemed like a win-win until they had their issues.
Oof. All right. Well, Sad Star Podcast. Before
Can
we
I say something before I leave?
Yeah.
To be honest, I kind of I was rooting for Big Ed at the beginning. Like first when he came, when he was just announced, I was kind of rooting for him, and I sat back there and I was like, oh, he has like a medical condition. He has Klippel syndrome, and I was like, oh, he's probably like someone is probably gonna bully him, and I'm like, I'm really sensitive about bullying because I was bullied to the point where I was hospitalized before twice. So I was like rooting for him, like very like I got emotional, and then when I was sitting back and watching, I was like, hold up, like why am I getting invested in this? Like I'm getting emotional, and when I got emotionally involved, I was also emotionally invested, and I was like, this is not okay. Like I started thinking that TLC are just a bunch of sharks. Honestly, they are sharks. They know what they are doing. They put him there. Yeah.
Can I just say one thing too? I was really surprised, Dr. Kirk, to see someone like Big Ed who probably does get scrutinized or bullied and go through these different things to take these characteristics of Rose, or like maybe the bad breath and stuff like that, and address her on national television. Like if that's not, I mean, wouldn't you consider that to be a form of bullying, knowing that that's going to be plastered all over, just thinking in your head like how that's going to play out, and that now we can't necessarily, we don't know what somebody's breath smells like through the TV screen. So that's something that we might have never known. But now that that's out there, that might be something that every single person who sees her might kind of group her with. And that's not necessarily fair.
No. Yeah, not fair. My lens that I look through the world is what is the need that he's trying to, you know, get met, and how does he do that in a way that actually gets his needs met or doesn't? You know, if it gets your needs met, then it's a healthy way of addressing your needs. If it's not, then it's not. And so in that instance, you know, what he's hoping for is to, you know, if I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt, which I think is reasonable, he wants to have a companion in life, and she has a lot of the things that he wants in someone, and they're bonding. And there's something he doesn't like about her, and that threatens his love for her or attraction to her, which worries him that it might infect their relationship somehow. I'm just taking a guess. And so, he has a need to eliminate that fear and to establish an even closer relationship with her, or physical attraction or something. And instead of having a more compassionate conversation away from the cameras, why would he have it in that way on camera that almost everyone can agree that was terrible? Why would you do it that way?
That was terrible.
Why? So this usually has to do with our defenses. You know, there's something getting in the way of him being able to more directly address his needs, and instead doing it in this other way. And he did this repeatedly. He's actually a pretty good case study in watching someone shoot themselves in the foot. And you could frame it as bullying for sure, but you know, every bully has a logical reason why they're doing what they're doing. And I never really knew what was going on with him because we didn't hear much about his past, but I suspected that early in life he had to learn how to depend on himself too much. And, you know, you can just watch my videos for that. But that's what I see. When he was doing that, I was like, why are you doing it that way? Like, what is it about his perspective and the way he sees the world that is screwing him up and shooting himself in the foot. Because obviously, if he was trying to establish a closer relationship with her, she was hurt by that and all the other things, that it compelled her away from him. So it didn't actually get his need met. It actually worked against him. And so many of us do that. So many of us in relationships will be at a way of trying to protect ourselves. We'll end up producing the very thing that we don't want in other people, i.e. them pulling away from us and hurting us.
Right. Almost again, since you know her so well, so Darcy would be a good example of that, because in a way to protect herself, she's always trying to kind of like attack the person that she's interested in, because she wants to almost push them, I feel like, push them away before they exit on their own. So it seems like it's her choice, but then really that's not what she wants, but she thinks it's a defense mechanism, a way to protect herself before what she thinks is the inevitable is going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's one way to put it. Another way is she's testing to see if it's true, you know, if Georgie is true, or Tom or Jesse. You know, if you test someone and they pass the test, can be a subconscious process. Then it's like, okay, I can depend on them. Or, you know, yeah, all that stuff. Right?
Yeah, just like vetting them too.
Because clearly she wants a relationship, right? It's clear that she wants a secure relationship. So why would she shoot herself in the foot by, one, choosing the kind of people she chooses, which is one avenue of analysis, and two, how she treats particularly Georgie, because we haven't seen the same behavior from Georgie that we did with Tom and Jesse.
Right. All right. Well, Sad Star Podcast, I appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and drop you down and move on to the last couple.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. And Dr. Kirk, I know you're a very, very busy man, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up Paul and Karin really quick, and then I'll get you off here. And again, I appreciate you. But as far as Paul and Karin, I wanted to bring them on as a topic of conversation only because I feel like this isn't something that's pre-produced. I feel like this was genuine. And I think that Paul used the show not for fame, but as a different avenue to get to Karin because of his checkered past, being the arson charges and all of that. And I feel like by getting with TLC, it made him able to get to Brazil to be with Karin. And it funded that for him. I don't think, like, as far as like Brittany and Yazan, I felt like Brittany was chasing fame. For Paul, I feel like he was just he's in his adult life and he's trying to kind of figure out where he's supposed to go from here, because he's essentially living with his parents. He has an arson charge and he can't get a job, right? But I'm curious, in your mind, I mean, why would somebody like Paul and Karin, why would they be picked for TLC?
Well, I mean, they fit the criteria of the, you know, person who doesn't live in the States and person who does, and the visa process. I suspect that they knew that Paul would be an interesting character because he is quirky. Let's just put it that way. And, you know, from the very early part of that season, they were kind of playing up that narrative that he's, shall we say, quirky.
A little quirky, yeah.
Yeah. And they, and she, you know, I guess has certain physical characteristics that plays well on TV, that, you know, raises questions that I think this show often will raise questions for audience members. I'm never knowing, you know, I never, because, you know, there's a lid for every pot. It's just hard to know like what attracts people and what doesn't. But I think one of the questions that the producer would be like, oh, I bet you this will produce that emotion in people of, he is a, you know, the narrative they're thinking is like, he is a unappealing, lack of personality nerd, and she's an attractive, interesting woman who, and that odd couple mismatch will produce a lot of emotion in us of, and maybe, you know, I could see, this is pure speculation, but I could see the producers also thinking maybe this will be one of the couples that audience members will pull for, you know?
Okay.
Because
like Kenny and Armando.
Yeah, right. And of course, the twist of the arson, which the TLC people must have known about prior, right?
They always have a twist. Every single cast member usually has a mid-season twist. Like Georgie was married. Jeffrey, he had domestic violence charges and other stuff. I mean, I feel like everyone always has a twist. Yeah.
With Jeffrey, they bit off more than they could chew. I mean, what do you think? Do you think they knew the extent to his charges?
See, this is the only reason I do feel like they know, because my fiance and I, we were, I guess we went through the audition process for a reality show, and they reached out to us and they asked us, okay, well, you know, here we are, and like we want to take you guys to the next level, but in order to do that, you need to sign this, this, and this, and we need to get more information from you to go to the next part of the process, right? And with that, they knew our whole background, where we came from, like if we did any, criminal background, they knew it all. So I just don't understand how that network would be doing that. So Bravo would be acting like that, but TLC, they don't do background checks, especially when TLC, they're dealing with, and this isn't any disrespect, but just more everyday people, as opposed to like Bravo, who seeks out a lot of already well-known household names or celebrity names like Denise Richards or Tori Spelling or somebody like that. You know what I mean? Like for TLC, we're getting everyday people who might live in your neighborhood, might be your neighbor, and they just might have got picked. They're not somebody who might have a famous father or something like that. It's just an respectfully average Joe Schmo. Mm-hmm. But no, I think that they definitely would have to do their homework, and then they just act like they didn't.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. Never underestimate the incompetence of people. So it's possible that somebody checking just didn't look into it enough or something. I could see someone looking into his background and being like, well, it's domestic violence. It's not that bad. If you don't know what to look for, if you don't know the language to look for, that people, if you don't have a personal experience with domestic violence, you might just be like, well, a lot of people have, and it was a long time ago. So I could see that happening, but I could also see them looking at this and going like, oh my God, this is going to be gold, because it's not only going to create some drama and tension for the show, but it'll create conversations outside the show on the internet that will, increase ratings. I could see that happening too.
And is it kind of crazy to think of it from like you could easily say this is skepticism or this is conspiracy, but I'm just thinking of it from an inside, behind the scenes, a production level. Do you feel like they could know these things that are going on? Because think about it. It goes back to that saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like that for TLC? They can't go every single season of every franchise or spinoff and have somebody who has this, oh, wow, we didn't know they had this criminal background, that seems to come out mid-season or at the end, where TLC makes a big headline because they had to fire a cast member. So then it gets even more eyes on it. I just feel like you said, this is just a very clever, I think they know.
Yeah, they could. I've seen gross incompetence in various organizations, so who knows? But yeah, is it possible that a network that has hundreds of people who are literally experts in knowing how to manipulate an audience or get an audience, let's say, get shows that have good ratings, which they clearly are good at, by the way.
Right.
Is it possible that they knew, or at least took a roll of the dice that, well, we'll act like we didn't know, and people will probably believe us for the most part, but this will definitely get us more ratings. Yeah, that's absolutely possible. It's hard to know. But the other question is that I often have about this, that I try to use my channel for, is, well, what can we use these shows for the greater good of society? So with Jeffrey, for example, regardless of why he was chosen to be on the show, was him being on the show and the conversations, that resulted, did it help society in some way? And I would say possibly. You could say it was done in a skeevy way, but you could also say that it raised awareness for domestic violence. It gave me an opportunity to talk a lot about my experience treating domestic violence perpetrators. And people just watching the show, is it helpful for them to see Jeffrey, who seems like a nice enough guy, and he has this horrific set of allegations in the past? Might that help people to say, like, oh, domestic violence perpetrators aren't like, disgusting, put off, people who put people off. Maybe it's just like the guy next door or the woman next door, which is true. So I don't know. I there's a lot of things that can be put on television, and I think things that give people an opportunity to learn more about this sort of thing, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Dr. Kirk, only because I think this is my third time saying this on this live, but I like how you just kind of took us to that place of trying to dissect this in a good way and figuring out what we can take away from these shows positive, maybe what can we learn, or how can we better understand somebody, as opposed to using this as just a big roasting session to completely obliterate somebody's character. You know what I mean? Like we just don't have to do that, and we see it so often. So I just want to say this was really nice. This was, I know it sounds cliche and a little bit to say this was therapeutic, but this was a really great conversation, and I feel really good about it. It was nice to have a conversation that doesn't go so far south and it's like gets a little messy. I enjoyed this.
I enjoyed it too. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I'd watch your channel, and as someone said, you were glowing. You just glow with energy and niceness and good energy, and so I feel that too. I feel like we should do this again for sure.
All right. I appreciate that, Dr. Kirk. I'll keep you around for sure. And I think that there's so many now that, when we emailed back and forth yesterday, just for anybody on, obviously only you and I and Master of BlackJack were on that email, but it was interesting when you were talking to me about how to necessarily prepare for this conversation. And then when I was going through your videos, I got really excited because this wasn't a gossipy roasting session. This was me being able to have a conversation with somebody who really tries to break down the dynamics of why things work the way they do. And I don't get a lot of those conversations. So I think that's why I was so excited about it. And again, my own personal interest in therapy and trying to understand people. So this was fantastic. I loved it.
Great. Can I ask you one last question?
Yeah.
So I got a scar right here. I don't know if you could see it. I fell down the stairs when I was 2 years old. What's your scar?
Which one? This one or this one?
That one at the top.
Okay, so I have the scar on the top. I was 4 years old, and my dad took my brothers and I to a house that my dad's an electrician. He was wiring the house, and he's like, all right, boys, keep yourself kind of busy. He's like, I just have to tie in one loose outlet, whatever the case was. And we had a football because he was taking my brothers to football practice. So my brother, as a joke with me, was like, hey, go run, catch the ball. So I'm running blindless, like whatever, right into a metal stud that was supposed to have a wall around it. So the metal stud split my head open, and my dad had to take me to the ER, and that's exactly what happened. But my mom was, can you imagine too, by the way, because that was my dad's night to watch me. So my mom was just like, what is going on?
Did your brother
Needless to say, we're brothers. I think my other brother got hit in the head by one brother with a hammer. So it's just, we have 11 brothers and sisters, and it's just massive and big and chaotic, and we're family. That's for sure.
The mark of family.
The mark of family, but that's okay. I didn't get a hammer to the head, so I'm okay with it. And you know what? Family, though, it's one of those things that, as much as I just said at the beginning of this, I moved across the United States, whether it's short-term, long-term, I'm not really sure yet, but I had my family involved in my move because I thought it would be nice to kind of just have this experience with them, whether it was going across the country or whatever. And now we've been together for 3 weeks, and it's just, you love them and then you hate them at moments, and you fight and you don't, but you can never replace them. And you're just so thankful and happy you have these times with them. So I'm just positive and happy and good.
You want to hit any of them over the head with a hammer?
No, I don't, not yet, but give me 4 weeks and I might lean over that way. I don't know yet. But Dr. Kirk, I appreciate you again calling in today and just joining me. This was so amazing to have this conversation. And I hope if you're not, I know you're super busy, but if you have a free day, I'll email you and maybe we can set something up next week to jump on.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kirk. And if you guys haven't already, please like this video and go check out Dr. Kirk Honda on his YouTube channel, Psychology in Seattle. And is there anywhere else we can find you?
No, that's probably it.
Psychologyinseattle.com.
Yep, psychologyinseattle.com.
Okay, you're modest. All right. Well, then we'll see you next time.
Okay.
All right. Bye, Dr. Kirk.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.